All right. We'll just go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining. This is one of the series of public webinars from ATP Bio. I'm Dan Chen, who handled strategic partnerships and innovation for the center, if you don't know me already. It's a great pleasure today to introduce Jared Matthews. Jared is a senior business development manager and membership services manager at ARMI. ARMI is the Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute, as you see on the slide, and also the latest, newest member to join ATP Bio as our member partner. And we're super happy to have this partnership between ARMI and ATP Bio. I think there's a ton of overlap, and certainly from a mission orientation, we see lots of synergies between the two different organizations. So we asked Jared to come and join us today and talk a bit about ARMI and the things that they do. I know there's going to be some folks already heading out to their big event come May. So I'm sure Jared will talk about that. But with no further ado, I'll just leave it to Jared to go ahead and start and talk about ARMI. Thank you. Thanks, Jared.
Absolutely, and thank you, Dan. Thank you to ATP Bio for the opportunity here, and Ellie, who's behind the scenes. Thank you for helping coordinate this webinar event. And hello, everyone. My name's Jared Matthews. As Dan mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager of Business Development and Membership Services here at ARMI. Super excited for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I have to first start off by congratulating the network at ATP Bio and Mass General for the scientific breakthrough that's late breaking news on the cryopreservation of the pig kidney that was implanted. It reminds me of the quote, that an overnight success is always 10 years in the making. So congratulations to you all for the amount of innovation that went into that scientific breakthrough just a few weeks ago. So congratulations to you all. And again, thank you to Dan and ATP Bio for the opportunity here. I am here to give a presentation on the Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute. I will be bringing you through an introduction to ARMI. In 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to try to cram all that we do here at ARMI into that time allotment. I'm going to focus around how we see that ATP Bio fits within the membership network here at ARMI. I'm going to talk about some member engagement opportunities as well, and then focus ourselves around the preservation, packaging, and transport working group that ARMI BioFab USA recently launched, and then discuss some of the opportunities to engage with our BioFab consulting group, different funding opportunities that we provide through ARMI, and then wrap up with a call to action for our upcoming annual summit called Meeting in the Mill Yard, which is happening on May 19th and 22nd. So without further ado, I'm going to hop in here. And again, as Dan alluded to, we are super excited to have both the University of Minnesota and ATP Bio recently join the BioFab USA membership network. So thank you. So what is ARMI? ARMI is really is a government-funded nonprofit that was launched right at the end of 2016, right at the end of the Obama administration, which was really in response to decades-long initiative by the U.S. government to really try to understand why both stem cell-derived cell therapeutics and tissue therapeutics weren't reaching the commercial scale. There was a committee that was put together called MATES that brought together many different governmental agencies from the White House, Department of Defense, NSF, NIH, and the like, to really answer that question, right? And the overwhelming response that came back from that committee was that the manufacturing of these therapeutic products is highly complex, and that there needs to be a single entity that coalesces and catalyzes the field of biofabrication. So the Department of Defense announced a request for proposals in which ARMI had responded to and landed the first grant here at ARMI, which is our BioFab USA grant. Since then, we've also been very fortunate to receive additional federal investment from a number of different governmental agencies that really focus on addressing particular parts of the value chain of what it takes to bring either stem cell derived cell therapy or tissue therapeutic to market. And that includes CARES Act funding in response to the COVID pandemic, and also grants through the Department of Commerce and the Economic Development Authority, which is really focused on a place-based investment here in Southern New Hampshire to drive commercialization efforts of both enabling technologies and therapeutic products, which I'll touch on later in the presentation. What is BioFab USA, you may ask? BioFab USA, which is that grant from the Department of Defense, is one of the 19 manufacturing innovation institutes. The Manufacturing Innovation Institutes, as I explain it, is really an initiative by the U.S. government to either, one, regain competitiveness in a given technology vertical, or to become the global leader in a specific technology vertical. So the easy example I always provide is the semiconductor manufacturing industry losing its competitiveness globally. The U.S. government stood up an institute to focus on the manufacturing of advanced semiconductors, and launched a Manufacturing Innovation Institute to accomplish that. There are a range of others that as you can see on the slides here, that focus on different technology verticals. The three life science focused innovation institutes are NIMBLE, based out of the University of Delaware; BioMade, which I'm sure a number of folks on the call today are aware of, based up at the University of Minnesota; and then us here in New Hampshire, called BioFab USA, again, focusing on the manufacturing of stem cell derived cell therapy and tissue therapeutics. We represent a network of members across the value chain of regenerative manufacturing. So we work with academic institutions, academic spinouts, and then within industry, working with raw material suppliers, the cell culture and harvest, scaffold fabrication, tissue assembly, the preservation, packaging, and transport, both upstream, getting to a facility, and then the final product being delivered ultimately to a clinical institution, working with the therapeutic developers, working with other government entities, other nonprofit organizations, and clinical institutions. So our industry segment is about 65%. Academic institutes make up about 25% of our membership network, and the remainder is other government entities and nonprofits. Primarily with government and nonprofits, there are organizations like our public-private partnership with FDA CBER and the Office of Chief Scientist, where ARMI can act as a neutral third party to socialize emerging trends and innovations to the FDA to really get a pulse on how the FDA is going to regulate that potential product. And then we can socialize that back to the ecosystem. Another good example of another nonprofit is working with Breakthrough T1D, or Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes, formerly known as the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, where we're partnered with them to really think about the scalable manufacturing of induced pluripotent stem cell derived pancreatic beta islet cells, but really working across the value chain of regenerative manufacturing to overcome a lot of the challenges that face this field and industry for a few decades. From a BioFab USA standpoint, some folks may be familiar with this graph or graphic, which BioFab USA really addresses the commonly known as valley of death, right? So once you've figured out how to develop a proof of concept or a prototype, and you're really starting to look at what does scaled manufacturing look like for that enabling technology or therapeutic, that's really a great time to engage with the team here at ARMI to understand what that looks like. And then recently, we've received funding, as I mentioned, through the Department of Commerce and Economic Development Administration to really think about then the commercialization of both the enabling technology and therapeutic products, which again, I'll get to in a few slides. How do we do this? How do we help innovators really prepare for product launch commercialization efforts? We do that by developing, funding, and really convening organizations that are developing the necessary enabling technology. You can think of new types of bioreactors, new types of raw materials like chemically defined culture media, a lot of inline, non-invasive, non-destructive sensing technologies that can be integrated into manufacturing platforms. The next is our regulatory and standards initiatives. ARMI's first hire at the Institute was Dr. Richard McFarland, who some of you may know or met recently or throughout the years. He came from FDA and thought he could make the biggest impact here at ARMI, and he launched what's called BioFab Consulting, which I'm going to get to in a few slides here. But we do a lot of work in working directly with our member organizations specific to their products and enabling technologies and therapeutic products to help them get engaged with FDA and go through that pathway with regulatory agencies. The next is the standards development activities, which is really led by one of our members, the standards coordinating body that was originally commissioned by FDA to really, again, coalesce and catalyze the necessary standards specific to regenerative medicine. The next component here is the deep tissue characterization. We have a core facility right up the street here in New Hampshire that has the necessary equipment to really leverage an untargeted multi-omic approach to understand your critical quality attributes and your resulted critical process parameters for manufacturing, which translates nicely into our applied manufacturing approach, which we call Tissue Foundry. And in my next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but really focused on the scalable manufacturing of stem cell-derived cell therapy and tissue therapeutics. The next is really enabled by the funding through the Economic Development Administration, which is really incubation, acceleration, and general business support, where there may be academic spinouts or startups that are looking to go through commercialization or product launch efforts and are in growth mode. We have provided a number of cohorts through our BioFab Startup Lab that can tap into executives and residents that are seasoned industry leaders to help them through a number of initiatives, whether that be building out financial models, looking at competitive analysis, looking at what your revenue strategy is going to be, providing these early stage startups the necessary tools that they need to accelerate their development. And last but certainly not least is our focus around workforce development. We have a whole team dedicated to the education and workforce development initiatives here at ARMI that's going to generate the new workforce necessary for the manufacturing that I've mentioned. Here is a graphic and a breakdown of the kind of ideal manufacturing process for a stem cell derived tissue therapeutic. This was our first tissue foundry that we put together back in 2019, where we put out a RFP for highly manual intensive manufacturing processes. And what we received back was a proposal from the University of Michigan spinout called STEL Technologies at the time that had a process to develop a bone ligament bone construct for ACL repair. They were really seeking to increase the scale of that. So part of our BioFab USA program, we had an intake process of that manual process, understood the process steps, and did an automation gap analysis to understand what off-the-shelf technologies were available back in 2019 to close and automate the production of the bone ligament bone constructs. So this system here actually is right upstairs for me, goes through the tissue harvest and cell banking, the expansion culture, stem cell differentiation that uses mesenchymal stem cells, differentiates those into both osteoblasts and fibroblasts. And the cells actually self-assemble into the construct itself, and then goes through the maturation stage. And then we actually look to preserve in a custom-built bioreactor, package that, and ideally would then transport that out into a clinical institution. This is completely just a proof of concept and prototype line. It's great for demonstration showcase purposes like we're doing here today, but also offers the opportunity for enabling technology developers to use this system as a test bed for new technologies. So one good example happening right now is a new sensor that was developed by one of our member companies that wanted to do some testing and gain some data to understand their parameters in a manufacturing process like this. So we're able to use it for opportunities like that. Additionally, we are really excited to partner with the FDA team down in Maryland to build what's called a biofoundry that's going to be placed at FDA. And it's going to enable FDA reviewers, investigators, and policymakers to advance regulatory science by testing numerous scenarios in a pre-competitive setting, develop metrics or other criteria that can be used to advance agency strategies and guide industry on effective development strategies. So super excited to be working with FDA on that. Now, onto where we see ATP-Bio's mission fitting with ARMI BioFab USA. As Dan alluded to earlier, we share in that theme that there are a number of synergies from convergent research, engineering, workforce development, innovation ecosystem, ethics and public policy, really working on all of those areas. And now that we're engaged with ATP Bio, I think we can continue to accelerate that. The next is making transformative discoveries. ARMI provides a number of different funding opportunities to further the enabling technology and therapeutic development, training a diverse workforce. We have a education and workforce development program called BioTrek that gets deployed into local high schools here in New Hampshire and Massachusetts for now, that provides high school students the opportunity to put together a hypothetical business model of a tissue therapeutic and pitch that to a range of judges in kind of a Shark Tank style. I've been fortunate enough to be a judge, and it is very motivating to see the next generation coming up with the ideas that they do and presenting that to a number of judges in the way that they do. The next education workforce development program that we're super fortunate to lead is our apprenticeship program. We've had a few apprenticeship programs that are registered with the Department of Labor that are both academic curriculum in focus, but also focused on the job training as well. And the idea there is to develop additional workforce necessary for this manufacturing, mostly focused on advanced manufacturing and aseptic manufacturing, and looking to continue to build out apprenticeship programs as we move into the future. The next is connecting resources and partnerships to create impact. So what I'm going to touch on in a few slides is our work on the preservation, packaging, and transport, which is really focused on the cells, tissues, and organ work that our network is focused on. And it's comprised of both industry and non-industry professionals with relevant experience or needs in the preservation, packaging, and transport space. From a member engagement standpoint, number of different ways to engage, and it really all depends on the type of organization and the goals that you have within your own business or organization. But what we do from a membership standpoint is really drive member-to-member connections, right? So who exactly are you seeking to engage with? And our team here at ARMI will provide the direct introductions for those partnership opportunities. The next is a shared resource, or what we call internally the member marketplace. Members actually subsidize their membership fee by committing in-kind or cost-share commitments, which could be time spent on the working group that I mentioned. It could be providing discounts to their products, materials, services, facilities, or consulting hours that can be offered out to other members of the ecosystem. So really nice advantage and benefit there to take advantage of some of the resources that other members are committing. The next is BioFab Consulting. If you did have any regulatory, quality, or revenue strategy needs or interests, our BioFab Consulting team is a member benefit, and members can take advantage of it at about half the market rate for their specific needs. The next is funding opportunities. Also working groups. So I had mentioned, and we'll discuss a little bit more on the preservation, packaging, and transport working group, but we've had a number of different working groups through the years that are really focused on driving awareness into what technologies and products are available on the market today, what is under development, and what needs to be developed to create scalable manufacturing approaches for these modalities. The last thing is having a dedicated member support manager. I think of it as a liaison or concierge for each member. There's a number of us on the call today that really guide and engage directly with individual member organizations to ensure that value is coming back to that member institution. As part of membership, we have a membership portal. In that membership portal, there's a member directory, so you can see all the other publicly available members. There's a member marketplace, as I mentioned, so you can look at all of these resources that have been committed by other members. There's also a grants database that we have refined to be specific to our field, right? Our members, and it provides kind of a filtered down version of grants.gov, if you will, that again are specific to our member organizations. And so that's live on our member portal right now. And then there's a member news section as well. So members can have a really good pulse on what else is happening within the membership network. Next is our meeting in the mill yard. We always have an annual summit, which registration is open right now, and I'll have a slide later on that I'll send you to a QR code. But we're super excited to launch that this year for Meeting in the Mill Yard 2025, and a number of opportunities to engage there. We're going to be having a regulatory boot camp hosted up here in Manchester, New Hampshire on May 19th, and then the startup boot camp, which is going to be hosted down in Boston on May 19th as well. We also have a number of webinar opportunities like this, where we invite members to come in and do a spotlight, discuss who they are, what they do, why they join the ecosystem, how they're looking to contribute to the ecosystem, but also what they're seeking to get out of the ecosystem. There are a number of speaking opportunities at the annual Meeting in the Mill Yard, different webinar opportunities, and at other member-hosted events throughout the year. Working groups, I won't continue to harp on that, but a really great way to engage in specific focus areas across the value chain of regenerative manufacturing, and then funding opportunities. So on to our preservation, packaging, and transport working group. The vision here really is to compile information on the current and emerging technologies that will enable the scalable, consistent, and cost-effective manufacture of engineered cells, tissues, and organs. The mission is to identify and present the state of technology for preservation, packaging, storage, and the transportation in scalable biomanufacturing of cells, tissues, and organs. The goals here are really to provide and gather the information on current and emerging technologies for preservation, packaging, and storage, to identify technology gaps that will allow us to guide any potential future funding opportunities that come from BioFab USA to address those technology gaps. And then finally, gather feedback from members on the BioFab USA technical roadmap that will identify those technical gaps. Lastly, the deliverables as part of this working group. We are seeking to do a survey and landscape and create the landscape map of available technologies and emerging technologies, identify and prioritize the technology gaps, develop and launch a searchable database that organizations can tap into to understand what the preservation, packaging, transport solutions are out there, and as they apply to either cells, tissues, or organs. So we're super excited to continue working towards that. And then also white papers that are addressing specific parts of the preservation, packaging, transport space. Next is just a mention of our BioFab consulting group, which again is here at ARMI and a resource that our members can tap into to understand the regulatory, quality, or revenue strategy considerations as it applies to specific initiatives at an organization. And again, this comes at half the market rate. So this group at ARMI can help organizations with their strategy development for their product. It can help review any submissions going to FDA. It can help write submissions going into FDA, and we can actually sit side by side with the innovator as they engage with the FDA. And a few other examples is helping organizations develop and build out facilities with the right quality considerations in mind for the specific manufacturing that they're seeking to do. Lastly, is just different funding opportunities. So part of our BioFab USA program, which again is funded by Department of Defense, a majority of that funding goes towards providing funding opportunities for enabling technology development and education workforce development. So the technology development projects really focused on the enabling technology for the manufacturing of stem cell derived cell therapy and tissue therapeutics. These could be new types of bioreactors. About nearly 2/3 of these projects are advanced sensor platforms, but also raw materials and preservation solutions. And the education workforce development. So I know we have a number of folks on from Mass General, and we're super excited to soon launch a project with MGB on the education workforce development side. And then finally, we also have commercialization projects. We've recently announced one and are soon to launch by the end of April. A project call that was really focused on the commercialization of either enabling technology or therapeutic products that provided resources here at ARMI to accelerate the commercialization process. So through the Tech Hubs initiative here at ARMI, that was funded through the Economic Development Administration, is really focused around creating good paying jobs and drive economic development. And by doing that, we can drive commercialization efforts of the enabling technology and therapeutic products. Lastly, if you are eager to engage further, as I mentioned, we have our upcoming annual summit here in Manchester, New Hampshire from May 19th to the 22nd. And I'll leave this up here for a second if you want to scan the QR code to learn more. But we'd be super excited if you were able to join us here in Manchester the third week of May. And with that, I just want to say thank you once again to the organizers, to ATP-Bio and the University of Minnesota. If you are interested in learning more, I left my contact information up there, and I'd be happy to discuss with you further. Thank you again.
Great. Thanks, Jared. Really fantastic summary of an organization that's has such breadth. I mean, from startup all the way to manufacturing. I think addressing this kind of the value of depth, the scale up from invention to full scale manufacturing is a really a unique capability in this space. I really appreciate everything you described there. So I'll invite people to pop some questions in the chat. While that's happening, I'll make a couple other comments and start off with a couple of questions. Again, I think the engagement's already started with ARMI and ATP-Bio. You mentioned this preservation working group. Got Minhan and Lee John on that right now, but certainly others want to join that group. Certainly can please let us know, and I can certainly get that also something that we can expand upon. The folks at MGB are already working. Catherine commented about the work going on in engineering workforce development. That's already an ongoing interaction. Dr. McFarland came all the way out to Minnesota here, Jared. He a couple weeks ago for the Organite conference between Mayo and the University of Minnesota. It was just great to have him there, and just the experience really shows in terms of the depth of regulatory expertise that he brings. And certainly, we have the engagement that we have on the spotlight, which we'll have at the end of the month. So again, be able to talk about ATP-Bio and what we're doing, hopefully get some engagements going on that. So again, I think there's a great match between what's happening at ARMI and ATP-Bio. So I'll just start with the first lead off question here. The one thing you mentioned and one thing that shows up is this BioFab startup lab. And maybe we can talk a bit about that and how that works, and the types of folks that engage in that and sign up for that, and maybe would you take them through during that kind of that boot camp, if you will. So
yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with kind of what the BioFab Startup Lab is, and then get to the boot camp, which is being hosted on May 19th. So the BioFab Startup Lab is an accelerator program here at ARMI that really applies to both, you keep on hearing the enabling technology development and therapeutic development. So really an accelerator program here at ARMI that's focused on the regenerative manufacturing organizations. It taps into, we're, I think, soon to announce our newest cohort. And it really provides early stage startups and growth companies that can tap into a bullpen of executives in residence. These are seasoned industry professionals that have gone through commercialization, that have gone through the regulatory pathways, that have landed investment, and provides you opportunities to engage with those folks to accelerate your product development and commercialization efforts. In addition to that, it provides opportunities to tap into some of the resources here at ARMI. Primarily, our BioFab consulting group has partnered with these organizations to help them build out their regulatory strategy, their quality strategy, and actually assisting them in engaging with FDA. So it is a really unique program specific to regenerative manufacturing that is going to accelerate the commercialization of these products. And then the BioFab startup boot camp happening on May 19th as part of Meeting in the Mill Yard is really to provide an opportunity to gain feedback from the investment community and the executives and residents on the organization's pitch deck. So there's going to be a number of opportunities for organizations to meet with executives and residents and have focused conversations with investors to really ensure that their pitch deck is addressing the different audience needs of either commercialization process or investing.
Great, thanks. It sounds like a really great process for people to get through, especially that network and the depth of capabilities and experience you have with those experts, which is going to be super helpful for startups. Just another question is, there's so much happening in ARMI, and this is just it's like a question maybe practically is, we have within ATP-Bio, we have trainees, we have principal investigators, we have our own kind of industrial advisory board and companies that are associated with that. What's the best way to engage with ARMI? Is it, through going to Meeting in the Mill Yard? Certainly one opportunity that's somewhere is going to be taken advantage of, but maybe some just general advice and what's the best way to engage with ARMI that you've seen to be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a classic regulatory response and say it depends. It depends on the organization, who they are, what they do, and what some of their goals are in terms of their organizational journey, right? So from an academic standpoint, there are certainly funding opportunities is an easy answer to provide, both on technology development and therapeutic development and the education workforce development programming. But there's so much more to ARMI that we can offer into these organizations, whether that be academic, industry, nonprofit, clinical, government. And it really comes down to a lot of, yes, funding opportunities, but a lot of thought leadership through these working groups, certainly the events that we host and engage with other member organizations on to really understand what's happening within the field, what's happening within the industry, and where they're networking partnership opportunities. And then there's other ways that me and my team provide, direct partnership opportunities to really address specific initiatives that you have at your organization. The member marketplace is also a great resource that is taken advantage of to gain access to the resources at a discounted rate. And that goes back to paying the membership fee of a number of our member organizations. But ultimately, if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out to me or my team. They'd be happy to have a discussion as it applies to your specific organization, where there may be opportunities to help you get engaged.
Fantastic things, Jared. And also we have Jeremy Sherwood online. He's, I think, our assigned partner on that side of it. So Jeremy has been super helpful. Just want to make sure that he's noted as someone we reach out to directly as well. So fantastic. Any questions from folks that are online? I don't see anything coming up. Well, Carla, okay. Are there test bed opportunities between ATP-Bio and ARMI's facilities? And test bed, by that we mean certainly in terms of the things we do on organ transplants and cell therapies. Maybe you can make a quick comment on that then. That's from Carla Pavone.
I would say certainly, Carla, I would love to have a conversation about that, especially given the work that ATP-Bio is focused on, and what we see as an opportunity to really think far ahead of how you're going to preserve, package, and transport these short shelf life products. how can we really focus early in the product development journey? And there may be opportunities that we could engage on that. So I'd love to have a focused conversation with you on what you may be thinking.
All right, very good. We'll arrange that. I see, Martin, you have your question up. Professor Yarmish, come off mute if you can.
Sorry, I needed to unmute. Um, I, I mean, have you gotten criticism about the sort of narrowness of the products that you guys are working on or aimed at, with bone grafts being one thing and red blood cells being another thing? It's not, you got a big name covering a large field. And I'm sure there's a lot of buzz about all sorts of things. Um, how do you respond to these people?
Yeah, I think, in terms of what we're really focused on here at ARMI is really to stand up the scalable manufacturer and the education workforce development necessary for that manufacturer. And we're really tissue agnostic, right? So really focused on developing the necessary enabling technology that can manufacture at scale different types of therapeutics and different therapeutic modalities as well. And our initial funding from Department of Defense really was focused on tissue therapeutics. And so really focused on standing up that manufacturing industrial base, but also looking at potential opportunities in different therapeutic modalities as well. But wanting to really focus and have core competencies in these given areas to really advance some of these therapeutic products towards patients and the market.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions from folks online at all? Raise your hand. Going once, twice, three times. I guess just again, last question from me, Jared, is just I see the blurb on the partnership you have with the Museum of Science. Maybe talk a bit about that, and Museum of Science in Boston, I should say. And maybe talk a bit about that and is an example of some of the outreach you're doing on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. We were super excited this past summer. Not summer. This past, I'd say, I guess, winter time. Sorry, I lost track of time there for a second.
Yeah.
To partner with the Museum of Science that in 2025 is the Year of the Human. And we had partnered with them to put together initially an exhibit down at the Boston Museum of Science. So if you're ever in the city, it's going to be there throughout the year. It's a 180-degree wall that's I'd probably say 15 feet by 10 feet almost. It's a massive display that puts together a video. It's about a 2-minute video that culminates just all the work that's happening in the biofabrication space. And that's really in thanks to our membership network. And so we took a lot of images and B-roll and content from our members and integrated it into that video. And it's going to be on display throughout the year down at Boston Museum of Science. And then also, we're going to be hoping to roll out additional forms of content that are going to lift up this field. Boston Museum of Science reaches physically millions of people in the museum, multi-millions of people digitally. So super excited for that partnership with Boston Museum of Science.
No, it's a great example of outreach too, and certainly from the mission that you guys have, expanding this and talking about more about what you're doing, and the importance of it to the U.S. competitiveness is really important. So very good. I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap it up. But I just want to thank you again, Jared, and thanks for the partnership with ARMI. We've got some engagements going on, but exciting to see more happening in 2025. Again, folks online, if you want to reach out to either to Jared or to Jeremy, certainly feel free to do so. They've been super responsive and really happy to see this blossoming partnership develop. So thanks again, Jared, for your time, and thanks for everybody on the ARMI side. And look forward to doing more in 2025. So thank you.
Absolutely.